evening, ladies and gentlemen, and many thanks for joining us for this special Speaks with Smiles episode. And Mr. Birla, many thanks for joining us here. Last interview, actually the first interview that I did with him, and this was several years ago, I remember talking to you about the changes that you had brought about within the Birla group. And one of the things that we were talking about then was how you went about professionalizing the group, bringing young talent into the group. How different is the group that you today head?
Well, I think, Shirin, to be honest, the group is very different. I think that, we've contemporized, we're professionally driven as would be said. Much more of young talent, we're a much younger organization. We used to be an average age of 56, now it's 36. So that in itself is a huge change. At the same time, we're quite an engine of, grooming talent.
Okay.
Which is something that I think has been a huge change from 15 years ago.
One of the other things that I remember you telling me was that telecom was a business that you didn't understand. Do you regret the fact that you got into telecom without really understanding it?
No, not really. I think that telecom, if you just put aside all that's happening just now in the telecom space, which is unfortunate, but as a business, it's a great business to be in. I think that, we have, for example, Idea has 90 million customers. That's a huge franchise. So, no, I think it's a very interesting space. We've got a very interesting franchise.
Do you understand it better now?
I understand it better, though I must say that unless you're a full-time CEO of a business which is as customer-intensive as telecom is, you can't really understand the nuances of it. It's a very nuanced business, many layers to it. But I think just in terms of the way the business has grown, the customer franchise, the fact that it's become full-fledged national player, it's the third largest in the country now, just the size in terms of the number of minutes and all of that. I think it's borne out our decision of staying on in the sector. And
you're still committed to it, given the fact that you always had apprehensions of operating in regulated sectors, and there can't be a more regulated sector than telecom in the country at this point in time.
Yeah,
so
but having said that, I think that it's the tail end now that's left in the telecom sector as far as regulation is concerned. I think a big overhang is now out of the way. So you have a few policy issues like, let's say, M&A, which is a big issue overhang in the telecom space. But you have a lot of regulatory issues that are now out of the way. So it becomes a much less regulated sector in that sense.
One of the other things that I remember you saying very, very clearly is that you will never be part of any business if you're not number one or number two or at best number three in the game. Do you still stand by that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that, having a leadership position in a business is absolutely critical as far as we're concerned. We wouldn't be in a business where we believe we can't be in a leadership position. So that's number 1, 2 or 3. And we'd certainly not get into a business where we don't see us becoming a leader in the foreseeable future. It could be 10 years, it could be 12 years, that's fine, because we are very good at nurturing businesses. But there has to be a line of sight and there has to be a clear understanding of what it takes to be a leader in that business. And whether or not we have the skills to do that, whether we can acquire the skills to do that. So leadership in our businesses is something that's very critical to our basic fundamental management strategy.
If I were to ask you between growth and profitability, what do you chase?
Oh, that's very, very clear for us. It's profitable growth. So we're not running after, we're not running after growing the top line. So it's very important that you grow, and we want to be in high growth sectors. But seeking a growth for the sake of growth that's not value-adding growth, it's a sort of a misnomer. It doesn't it's like they say, it's vanity, but that's all it is.
Okay, we've got questions and lots of them, so I'm going to go to Avadut Talli. Avadut, if you can stand up please and ask a question.
What would be that one message you would like to give to the budding entrepreneurs and managers?
I think that you've got to be really passionate about what you're doing, and you've got to enjoy doing what you're doing. And in a sense, for me, that's half the battle won. Because with passion comes a certain amount of discipline, sustainability, the fact that you can be much more productive, much more lateral in the way you think about a business or whatever you're doing. So I would think passion, and also with that discipline. I think that, it sounds very old-fashioned, but discipline is very important as well.
When you're talking about global businesses, when you're talking about looking at the next growth curve, you're looking at the next big opportunity, what drives you? How do you actually, is there a template that you look at an opportunity, it must fulfill 5 or 10 things on your agenda, and then you think that, okay, this is a viable opportunity for us to look at? How do you decide what is going to work for you and for the group?
So if it's for an existing business, we understand the business, we know what it requires from the point of view of needing to bolster it and move the next few steps forward. So it's pretty much driven by an understanding of a business, but getting into a new business is somewhat more challenging.
Okay.
I think, we look at obviously the numbers. The numbers have to stack up.
Three acquisitions, and we're just in the 4th month of this year. Clearly 2011 is going to be the big acquisition year for you.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think of it that way. These are things which are in the pipeline. So you really can't time these things. So I can't say that 2011 is the year of acquisitions. You could have more misses than hits. And that's not something that one is sort of excited about. I think the important thing is to create value and make value-creating moves, decisions.
So is there a war chest that you've got in place and that you're working with in order for you to be able to achieve that goal of $65 billion in revenue by 2015?
So again, Shirin, because we are so many different businesses and so many different legal entities, each one would have sort of a vision about where they want to be by 2015. They would have drilled that down into a fair level of detail, as much as is practical, and they would set aside what you call a war chest, or create a strong enough balance sheet on which they can further create a war chest that is required to, let's say, make large acquisition, for example.
So from 30 to $65 billion, clearly inorganic growth is going to be a large part of that strategy.
I think so. I think that that's because we have a track record of doing that, so we have a level of comfort in growing through acquisitions. But more than that, it's about the businesses that we are in. When we look at those businesses, when we look at the competitive landscape, it just so happens that in most of our businesses, we are in a position where we can play the role of an aggregator and actually sort of grow through aggregation rather than necessarily adding fresh capacity. So I think that given that, we probably will see a large part of our growth, a fair amount of our growth coming through acquisitions. We also have a lot of growth happening through organic greenfield opportunities. So it's a mix of both, but when you have that large leap to make, it has to be more of, or a lion's share has to be through acquisitive growth. We were, for example, $9 billion 4 years ago. We are 30 today.
Yeah.
So we have a track record of thinking a little audaciously and sort of, making people think that we're a little stupid. And then sort of going out to prove them wrong.
How do you get people to think you're a little stupid?
I'm sure a lot of people think that it's very stupid to, even want to become 65 billion in 5 years, from a base of 30 billion.
Why is that?
Because it's a huge ask. I mean, it's a really, really stretched target. But, the endeavor is to get there, and we have in the past gotten there.
So as you sit here today, and you yourself said the $65 billion target is an audacious one, what gives you the confidence that you are going to be able to go from 30 to 65 by 2015?
My team, clearly. I think it's the people, their capabilities, their ambitions, their drive, their passion, commitment, all of that.
Which businesses in specific? Which businesses do you think are going to be able to deliver on that promise for you?
Each business has their own target to hit. And it's different for each business because the sizes of the businesses are different.
Yeah.
They're in very different environments. But I think a lot of our businesses, metals, for example, fiber, financial services, telecom, I think all of them have